Good morning and happy Easter. I'm standing here on this lake today because what I want to talk about occurred with Jesus and his disciples in a location just like this. They were standing by the seashore, or they were on a boat. Many of the stories that we know of Jesus happened right here among water. There were fish, times of feeding. He spoke from the boat. And I thought it'd be a good idea today to capture the heart of what happened at Easter from right here. And Easter's a great time for us because it signifies a lot of different things. And I hope that by the time I'm done, that I've spoken about life. Some of you are hearing it for the first time, and others have heard it for many times about how Jesus died. But I want to talk about how he lived. I want to talk about how we can live and what the resurrection means to us going forward. To begin with, I'd like to read a story found in John chapter 21. It says this: After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and showed himself in this way. Gathered together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of the disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples didn't know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered, "No." He said to them, "Cast your nets on the right side of the boat, and you'll find some." So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish, that the disciple who Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and he jumped into the sea. But the others just came in their boats, dragging their nets full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you've caught." So Simon Peter went aboard the boat to haul in the net and haul it ashore, full of fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many fish, the net didn't break. And Jesus said to them, "Come, have breakfast." Now, none of the disciples did ask, "Who are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. And Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus had appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And he said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Then Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter felt hurt because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" He said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were young, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hand, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you didn't want to go." He said that because it was an indication of the kind of death which he would glorify God in. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." The first time that we hear about Peter in the book of Matthew, the story tells us that he's fishing. Here he is right among the water. Him and his brothers, they're throwing the net into the lake, and Jesus calls them to follow him, and that he will make them fishers of men. They dropped their nets and they followed Jesus. They leave behind the comfort of everything that they know and everything familiar to follow Jesus. Peter does what Jesus asks him to do. He follows it. And he follows Jesus throughout his ministry. Scholars estimate that it was about 3.5 years that Jesus taught and healed, and that Peter was with him during that entire time and watched all of it. Peter was part of his inner circle, one of the disciples that was closest to Jesus. He was the only one who had walked on water with Jesus. And Peter was one of the 3 disciples who was there to witness the transfiguration of Christ. But then things changed dramatically. In the 19th chapter, we find a Peter who's standing there at the crucifixion of Jesus, and Jesus dies. And then in the 20th chapter, we have an empty tomb, and Peter was one of the very first ones to go inside that tomb and find those strips of linen that were burial clothes that had been on Jesus' body. Now we come to another chapter, chapter 21. And when life gets difficult, this is where they are. Life has gotten difficult. And when we become lost and confused and afraid, and when the changes of life are not what we wanted or that we think we deserved, we tend to run away. We try to go back to the way it was before, to something safe, something familiar. And often we revert to the old patterns of behavior and thinking. And even when we know better or do not want to go backwards, it seems easier than moving forward. This was familiar to Peter. They left Jerusalem. They have come home to the Sea of Tiberias, Sea of Galilee, a place where it all began, where they were when they met Jesus. And the disciples in the upper room, the cross, the empty tomb, the house, all the locked doors are some 80 miles away to the south. And Peter decides, I'm going fishing. He knows how to do that. It's familiar to him. It's comfortable. And perhaps it takes him back to a time before Jesus or even when he met Jesus. And the others are quick to go with him. My hunch is, however, that Peter's not actually wanting to go backwards in life. He's not really trying to catch fish as much as he's fishing for answers. We can leave the places and even the people that are in our lives, but we can never escape us and our life. Wherever we go, we're there. And Peter may have left Jerusalem, but he can't get away from 3 years of discipleship. He can't get away from the upper room or the Last Supper, the arrest, a charcoal fire, denial, the crowing of a rooster. It's all there. The cross, the empty tomb, the house with the doors locked tight, and the echoes of peace be still. So he goes fishing. Peter fishes for answers. He's looking, what have I done? Where are those 3 years and what were they about? Who was Jesus? Where is he? Who am I? What will I do now? Where will I go? What will happen to me? Peter's searching for meaning, a way forward, a place in his life. He's in a dark night of fishing. We've all spent some times in dark nights fishing, asking the same questions as Peter, looking for our place in life, seeking peace and some sense of understanding and meaning. More often than not, dark night fishing happens in the context of failures, losses, and sorrows of our lives. It happens when we come face to face with the things we have done and left undone. We've all been there, fishing for answers in the darkness. Then Jesus, children, you have no fish, have you? Jesus says this more as a statement of fact than a question. He's not doing and looking for a fishing report. He's commenting on the reality of the emptiness in Peter's heart and of the other disciples and their lives. Peter is living in the pain and the past of Good Friday. He's fishing on the Good Friday side of the boat, and the net is empty. There are no fish, no answers, no way forward. The nets of dark night fishing contain nothing to feed and nourish life. I wonder if we've ever been fishing on the wrong side of the boat. Jesus seems to think so. He says to them, cast your nets, I like this, on the right side of the boat. Jesus says, cast it on the resurrection side of the boat. The movement of the net from one side of the boat to the other symbolizes to the disciples that they too are part of the resurrection. It's the great Passover. And Jesus calls us to move out of error and into truth, and out of sin into righteousness, and out of death into life. In doing so, we proclaim it's the Lord, just as Peter did. It's the Lord. And emptiness inside of us gives way to the abundance of a net full of fish, large ones, 153 of them. The darkness dawns a new day with new light. And a new charcoal fire kindles hospitality in a place where cold ashes of rejection once were. The Last Supper has become our first breakfast. Confessions of love overcome the denials of fear. It's the Lord. Dark night fishing is over. This is Easter, Good Friday. It's real. Pain, death, sin, they're all realities of life. But the greater and final reality is the Easter resurrection. Follow me, Jesus says, follow me and live as resurrected people. Follow me and fish in a different place. Follow me. Follow me is the invitation to examine where we have been fishing. On which side of the boat do we fish? On which side of the cross do we live? Good Friday or the Easter resurrection?